maybe I should use this. I guess I have to get used to having a podcast. But we really want to know who you are. We want to know why you do the things that you do. I don't want to know about how you were bullied or made fun of or teased. I don't want to know about how you want to find a treatment or a cure. I don't want to know about anything in regard to your alopecia. Now, obviously, you can use alopecia as a framework as to how you move forward. But we don't want to concentrate on the alopecia or the hair loss. We want to concentrate on you. So if you're a parent, one of the things that you can do is talk about the positive things that came out of your child having alopecia. And then I want to know what you do for a living, what you do for a hobby, how you pass the time, and how you include your family. And tell me about the things that you want to do. Give me ideas as to what we should be doing. If you're an adult with alopecia, I want you to tell me about who you are today. Again, you can define who you are today by what you were yesterday. But I really want to know about today and what you plan on doing tomorrow. I want to know your accomplishments. I want to know what you do, why you do what you do, what makes you tick, and why you want to support the Children's Alopecia Project. Now, if you're a kid, a CAP kid, or if you're a CAP kid alumni, I want to know where you're at today. Now, you're the only one that can actually talk about what happened in the past, but I don't want it to be concentrated on your experiences at school or at home. If you want to bring up your experiences at a CAP kid group or a CAP kid camp or Alopecia Palooza, perfect. But tell me what you're doing today. Tell me what sports you play. Tell me what clubs you're involved in. Are you a musician? Are you in college, high school, junior high? We're not going to have kids that are under 12 doing this because we want productive, flowing conversation. And the reason I want that is because I want those little kids to be watching this with their parents and see what they can become. You know, there's only so much we can do when it comes to treatments and cures and all that stuff. And very important. I've said from the very beginning, there is no one that wants to put the Children's Alopecia Project out of business more than me. But until that day happens, we have to split up in two groups. The National Alopecia Areata Foundation, fantastic at what they do. They are fantastic with putting on that conference every year and educating people. They're awesome at getting the research dollars to where they need to be. They are awesome at getting legislation, hopefully passed, so that way people with alopecia don't have to worry about as much stuff, kind of like insurance when it comes to hair prosthetics, stuff like that. So NAF, just like CAP, we serve the same community. We just do different things. So instead of talking about that stuff, we just want to talk about self-esteem, confidence, support, and obviously awareness. And that's where you come in. I want you to be part of that process. Now, I'm not sure how often I'm going to be doing this podcast. Right now, I'm thinking like every 3 hours. So, yeah, every 3 or 4, maybe 4 hours. But I think my wife told me maybe once a week. So what I'll do is once a week, we'll have a guest or a bunch of guests, and we'll talk about just the stuff that you want to talk about because it's about you. I don't have an agenda. I'll never have notes. We're just going to wing it and we're going to make it happen. Now, I do have notes based on the stuff that I want to ask. But when it comes to a script on how you have to go about it, it's all about you. So, for everyone that's listening to me for the first time, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background story. as to why and how I got here. Um, and I apologize in advance. When I speak, I'm always thinking about what I want to say in 3 more sentences, and I get confused and forgetful. So if you see me staring someplace other than the camera, it's not because I don't want to engage with you. It's because I'm trying hard to keep everything together. So, with that said, I have 4 daughters and and a wife, and everything is perfect. Maddie just started kindergarten. Her big sister was in first grade, so she felt like a big kid. And September, the school started. Everything was perfect. She loved her teacher. She loved her classmates. She loved everything about school, and she felt like a big kid. In October, she was going to be a flower girl in a wedding, so she was looking forward to wearing her hair in braids and wearing makeup and wearing a beautiful white dress. So all she could think about was that wedding and how happy she was to be in first grade. She was 5 years old. This is 2004. Excuse me, 2003. So, to make a long story short, when it comes to that, we had a great time at the wedding. We get home. We decide we're going to take the braids out that night because I think we had plans in the morning the next day. So, we took Helena and Maddie's braids out, and Betsy was taking out Maddie's braids, and she was saying, "There's a lot of hair that's coming out." So we didn't really think anything of it. We were just thinking, well, the hairstylist pulled those braids too tight, and some of the hair, unfortunately, pulled out. Plus, she's 5, so that kind of stuff happens, right? Well, um, we gave her a bath afterwards. We noticed there was um, a lot of hair in the bath water. The next morning, when she woke up, we noticed there was hair on the pillow, and I think we waited for about a week because that first week she had a part in her hair, and the part was getting wide. So we decided that we were going to go to Betsy's dermatologist because if you didn't know this, Betsy, my wife, she's had alopecia since 1976, but she's the classic patient. She gets a nickel-sized, quarter-sized bald spot every couple of months or couple of years. I mean, she's gone stretches of like 7 years of not getting a spot. So what she did was she made an appointment with her doctor for herself, and she was going to bring Maddie with. And being like the nice person Betsy is, she felt kind of guilty doing this, but she did it because it's for her daughter. When they were in the doctor's office, obviously the doctor said, "So what do we have here?" And Betsy's like, "Well, I think she might have alopecia." So the doctor checked her out and said, "Yeah, it looks like it is," and gave us a referral to the University of Pennsylvania's Hershey Medical Center, where there is a specialist there, and that's where we took her. I'm not going to go into all the details, but we took her to the appointment. The doctor pretty much said, "Yes, definitely alopecia," and said a couple of other things. And if you listen to my school speeches, you'll understand what happened at that appointment. But everything worked out well because that doctor is now our medical director. And if we ever have any type of technical problems or questions, we contact him and he helps us out. Well, to make a long story short, we had to figure out how to navigate all this, just like all of you parents out there. You're helpless. There's really nothing out there medically that will fix 100% of the alopecia and 100% of the people. Everybody has opinions on what the trigger was, food, environment, stress, this and that. And yeah, sure. I just decided from the very beginning, I'm going to believe all of it. Yeah, if you think this is what caused it, okay, I get it. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't go back and undo it. And if it happened with this child, why didn't it happen with anyone else in the house? And the reason it didn't, I've learned over the years, is that your child had this autoimmune disease, and a trigger was just the thing that set it off to be active, which is why it didn't happen in anyone else in your household. So you feel helpless. Like when somebody that you love has cancer, everyone is on board. We all want to get behind that person. We want to fight for this person. We do fundraisers. It's like a matter of life and death, and we're going to help that person get through it. But with alopecia, it's not contagious. Doesn't hurt. No one will ever die from alopecia. There's no invasive treatments. There's no needles. There's no pills to take that are ever effective. So it's kind of like, well, how can I get behind that? It's like, no, I'm going to stick with the cancer and the other bad diseases. And guess what? I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I want cancer cured a heck of a lot faster than alopecia. I want heart disease to be eradicated. I want every other disease on earth to be cured. Alopecia is the easiest physical disease to have. The only problem with alopecia is how you feel about yourself, because you just lost part of yourself. It's not like you lost part of your arm where you can get a prosthetic put on, or a leg. And nowadays, you could lose your nose and get a prosthetic put on your nose. But when you lose your hair on your body, it changes the way that you see yourself, and it changes the way that you perceive other people looking at you. And that's where people go into a shell. So you have to keep out of that shell. You can't have crutches, which is why everyone thought I was against wigs. I was never against wigs. I just didn't want the kids to have to wear a wig. I wanted them to want to wear a wig or a hat. Like today, I'm wearing a hat. I'm bald the old-fashioned way, but some days I choose to go al fresco like this, and some days I just like putting on a hat. And today is one of those days. Plus, when I'm speaking, I have a lot of shininess up there because I got a greasy head. That's the Italian part of my heritage. So, different story. So, what I wanted to do is to make sure that Maddie felt comfortable in her own skin. So, we suggested wearing a hat. We got the school to allow her to wear a hat. The school allowed everyone in kindergarten to wear a hat. That went great. I thought that was going to be the cure-all, but her hair continued to fall out fast. And it got to the point where November came around, and in the school that she was at, the kindergarten class always did a Thanksgiving play. And half of the kids made pilgrim hats, and the other half made these beautiful headdresses. And Maddie was picked to wear a headdress. So all the kids are wearing a hat. They're making these pilgrim and headdresses. And when they were done, they have to try it on. Well, everyone just took off their hat to try on their pilgrim hat or their headdress. Maddie, the realization just happened where she was like, oh, I can't take my hat off. So she had to put her headdress on over the hat. And that upset her a lot more than I ever would have thought it would have upset her. She came home, she was upset. And back in those days, we thought that if she was having a bad day, then it had to do something with alopecia. And usually it didn't. Almost, I think all the time it didn't, except for this time. But it wasn't something that happened at school from another child or a teacher or a board member or an administrator. It was because of her mom and dad, mainly me. I'm the one that came up with the idea to wear a hat. And she told me that she never wanted to wear these stupid hats in the first place. That was the first lesson learned. You have to include your children in this process. You just can't tell them to do something because they're going to listen to you because you're the mom, you're the dad, and they're the child. So we had to figure out a way of getting that hat off of her head so she felt comfortable to go to school. It was never an issue that she wanted to cover up her alopecia. I believe at the time she was just ashamed of her alopecia. She wasn't that crazy about having strangers see her with no hat on, but she didn't want any of her friends or people that knew her to see her without a hat on. So we went to the Berkshire Mall, and we just decided that she would go on one side of the mall and I would go to the other side. And I would look at my watch, and for 20 seconds, she would take off her hat, and all these strangers would walk past her. And then after 20 seconds, I would nod my head again, and we would meet. And then we would talk about her feelings and how she felt. And did anybody say anything? Did anyone stare at you? And all the time, she never had anything negative to say, but she always said that they smile at me kind of weird. And it took me a little while to catch on to this. And I wanted to know, how do they smile? Can you show me? And she went, well, they smile like this. And I realized that's not the smile of somebody who's happy. That's a smile of someone who's feeling sorry for the kid with no hair. And I'm sure that they have their hypothesis as to why that kid has no hair. And I'm pretty sure it's a real negative reason, but I didn't want people to feel sorry for her. I wanted people to see this beautiful child with no hair, and it wasn't a big deal. At least for Maddie, I wanted to show her it wasn't a big deal. So we decided that, okay, we have to do this all over again, and we need to do it in a different way. So now, every time somebody starts smiling at you that way, you need to give them the biggest smile you can. Because when Maddie was a little girl, she had these big chubby cheeks, and it just made her smile look like it was going to explode. And there was absolutely no way a human being could watch that child smile thinking that she had a horrible disease, or if she was in pain, or if she was knocking on death's door. There was just no way that anyone would believe that. So that's what we did. She would go to that side, I'd go to this side, look at my watch, nod my head, 20 seconds, takes her hat off. All these people are walking past her, but now the big difference is that Maddie is smiling at all these people, and all of those people were smiling right back at her. It changed the whole direction. After doing that for a little bit, she just decided, Daddy, I don't want to wear my hat at school anymore, but you have to come in and tell the class. I went in, talked to the class. I was thinking that the worst was going to happen. The worst did not happen. The kids didn't care. The rest of the school didn't care. She stopped wearing her hat. And basically what ended up happening is that the school had her back. All the kids. All the kids would tell other kids, new kids, that you don't make fun of Maddie. She has alopecia. She can't help it. Her hair falls out. That's it. So I used to have all of these mostly stereotypical type of feelings. Girls need to have hair. I have 4 daughters. They need to have hair. I have one daughter that doesn't have hair. There's something wrong with that. I wasn't handling it very well. And then when we got through these different challenges, and she started not to wear a hat at school, it actually became kind of a problem, because she wouldn't wear a hat in the sun. She wouldn't wear a hat out in the snow. She was like, I'm hatless. So we created a little monster, basically, a no hat monster. So we had to figure out, like, okay, so how do we continue this process? And the process was simple. We're just going to love her. We're going to treat her just like our daughter Maddie, that had hair, because she's still Maddie with no hair. There's no difference. The same thing with my daughters, Helena, Sophie, and Amelia. I love them for who they are, not what they look like. I could care less if they were huge. I could care less if they were skinny, as long as they were healthy. I could care less what they want to do with their life, as long as they're happy and they're passionate about what they're doing. That's all I want for them. I want them to be happy. And I love them. And I encourage them. That was never going to change with Maddie. So Maddie got to the point where she started to accessorize with stuff, and she joined clubs in school. She played sports. She went to high school. She did everything a high school girl does. She went to college, got a degree in fashion merchandising. She works for Urban Outfitters in downtown Philadelphia at their corporate office. She got through her life basically unscathed. And I'm sure there were little things here and there, but we never heard about those little things. Maybe somebody said something afar. Maybe somebody stared at her and laughed, stuff like that. just rude people, basically. And unfortunately, we have rude people. But she had a relatively normal life, if you understand what normal is. Well, I needed a support group. At the time, it was basically, I need a support group for my daughter. What I needed was a support group. I needed to meet other parents so I could help navigate my brain through this process. And we met some awesome families in the beginning, all pretty much local. And from those first meetings, we started to branch off into other states where people wanted to come. Then we started to do bigger events. And then I mentioned it to my wife that, what, we need to start a nonprofit. And she's like, okay, yeah, we need a nonprofit. You work all the time. I was in the nursing home business as an administrator, and she was at home with the kids. I mean, we were busy, and I'm pretty much on duty 24 hours a day. So it was difficult for Betsy to make that decision. And it was the best decision we ever made. It basically introduced us to other families, introduced Maddie to other kids. And when we started to get bigger, thanks to social media, which is where I sold my soul, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we started to raise more and more money. And then we started to do more and more things. So that's where I am today, 19 years later. We are doing 9 camps around the country in different states. I visit up to 100 different locations and schools speaking and giving bags of books to the kids with alopecia to donate to their school library. We have CAP Cares. We have a bunch of other stuff going on. And the reason we do this is because awareness, support for the families, building confidence in the kids and self-esteem. And we're not really doing that. It's not like we're giving them something to say, here's self-esteem, wear this. No, we put them in positions to build their own self-esteem, because that's the best way of building it. An example would be, and I always use this example at surf camp, we would have the kids get the instruction from professionals, and they would talk about what's in the ocean, because all the kids are afraid of getting eaten by a shark, stung by a jellyfish, crabs, getting their toes, all of these different excuses. When what they're really afraid of is being the bald kid that doesn't know how to surf and everybody on the beach staring at them and laughing at them. But the thing is, all of the kids were going to surf. It might be just for 1 second, but they were going to surf. And after they stood up on that board for the first time, they forgot about everything that was in the ocean. They forgot about the people on the beach. And the only thing that they wanted to do was to get back in the water and get on that surfboard and try again. Well, guess what? Their self-esteem went up because they are the ones that decided to be positive and move forward. We only gave them the tools to do it. And it happens at all the camps with zip line, with the giant swing, with canoeing, with anything that you might be afraid of. Once you accomplish it, you feel better about yourself. And it's usually fun. And then you want to continue doing it over and over and over. Getting you out of your comfort zone to be in a cabin with strangers. Same thing. By doing that, you've accomplished something. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So that's kind of the background story. That's the short version. I know you're thinking, that's the short version? Man, I'm so happy you didn't give us the long version. Well, the long version is saved for me speaking in the schools and at corporations and wherever I'm invited. And the reason why I tell them that story is because I want them to know the story of me. But I want them to know that it's really, really, really important to treat your child the exact same way that you would treat your child with a lot of hair. The same way that you would treat your other kids or just other people in general. You just love them. You support them. You're their champion. So it's probably the best thing I've ever done in my life, besides getting married and having kids. It's the thing that I'm most proud of. I don't take compliments very easily. And I guess because I'm getting older and I've been doing this for 19 years, it's easier to acknowledge the thanks that people give me. But I I never did this for you. And this is where I'm being selfish. I didn't start CAP for you. I started CAP for me. And it changed my life. And it changed my life to a degree that I would be selfish if I would have just kept all of that. So that's why I wanted to share it with everyone, which is why we started the Children's Alopecia Project. So if you have questions with anything, go to one of our social media pages, go to our website. Contact information is at all of those locations. We're going to have something that's more permanent on this podcast where you'll be able to, like, at least, click a link or something. I'm still getting used to all this stuff. And I don't even know when you're going to be watching this. Maybe it's going to be like a week before I start the podcast. But I wanted to put something out there because I wanted you to understand the reason behind it. I deal with parents that are on the ledge all the time about their child's alopecia because they feel so helpless. I felt so helpless. You felt so helpless. And we just have to remember that that's just a part of our lives. It's a part of our child's life. If you're an adult, it's part of your life. It's not the whole. And actually, when you look at it percentage-wise, it's not the biggest. And about 7% of your body would have a lot of hair on it. And the only parts they're going to show is the top of your head and your face. So if that's 4% or 5%, you still have 95%. Concentrate on the 95% and move forward. Don't worry about what you don't like. Just own it, move forward. I know it's easy to say. It feels impossible to do. But I did it. I did it with my love handles. I did it with my, the side man fat. I did it over 37 years of going bald. And it was hard. It's hard. Like when I get up to a group and I show off my love handles, it's the thing I hate the most about me. But when I do it, I'm totally at ease. I just owned it. I just showed everybody what I dislike about myself. There's no one that could ever judge me more than I judge myself. Just like you judge yourself. Everyone has something. Everyone. Kids with alopecia, obviously, it might be the main thing. But you could also be the tallest girl in the class and you feel like you're the square peg. You could be the shortest boy in the class and feel like the square peg, or the girl with red hair and freckles, or the kid that's really big, or the girl that's really skinny. We all feel out of place. And the thing is, there's a place for all of us because we're all different. We're all original. That makes us normal. That makes us perfect. So until the next episode, keep your eyes open. And I promise to make an announcement soon when this thing starts. So, on behalf of my family and the Children's Alopecia Project, this is Jeff Woytovich with Beyond the Cap, waiting for you to get in touch with me so we can get you on this podcast.